So hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer quick match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the indomitable Dawi against the beastmen, led by Rectagas on the map, Glacial Lake. So let's see how things break down. After kind of doing almost a Dawi bashing video the last time around with the handguns, I wanted to give the I did want to demonstrate some games of giving the dwarves a chance, and so yeah, kind of running this build. A bit inspired by some of the other dwarf players I've been running into, and some YouTubers and that sort of stuff. Yeah, just wanted to give some units a shot. Or give this comp a shot, I suppose. Running a Lord, just to go very cheap in the Commander department. I know Rune Lord is kind of in the vogue nowadays, but I've really taken a liking to the Dwarf Lord. He's very cheap, and I did bring a first potion of toughness so that he can heal. No potion of full hardiness because his leadership's very high. I'm assuming he won't break. A Fire Ring of Thori, which can do very good damage against squishy targets, and of course here against Beastmen I'm expecting at least some squishy targets. Stand your ground for that AoE boost, and that's it. He's very cheap Lord there as far as dwarves are concerned. Then alongside him a Runesmith. The Runesmith, of course, coming in with all of his runes, as well as the rune of Master Rune of Stromny Redbeard, which will boost the melee attack and leadership of nearby units. That's it for my hero contingent. My front line is composed of Longbeards, and there are three of them here, and a single unit of Dwarf Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. As you can see, these guys are very isolated and separated, and that is to provide some gaps in the line for my Thunderers and Iron Drakes to fire through. That's really the only reason. Then alongside them, we have Miners out on the flanks. I've really taken a liking to these guys as kind of a cannon fodder, cut off enemy flankers type of unit. Otherwise, they have armor piercing, which is nice, but not too useful against beastmen who don't bring much armor in the first place, except Bestigors, of course, but that's going to be in the front line. And then we do have the Dragonback Slayers back here, who will crush enemy large units very effectively, especially unarmored ones like the ones beastmen tend to bring. Then for the main damage contingent, we do have 2 units of Thunderers, as well as Iron Drakes with Trollhammer torpedoes. These guys are much maligned, I think, and a lot of people don't like them. They're very susceptible to getting taken out. In some ways, they're very expensive. They're very much focused on shutting down one thing and one thing only, and that's large. They can do an okay job against armored infantry. So a lot of people don't like them, but I've actually taken a liking to them. They're kind of a fun unit, and they can definitely dish out the hurt when they're given the opportunity to fire. And hopefully we'll get to see some action with them this game. Then we do have 2 cannons, kind of there for sniping enemy large, whittling down enemy heavy targets, and then in the center a Goblobber, just to break enemy morale. Beastmen don't have the best of morale, so definitely hoping to capitalize on that. And yeah, throwing things into full gear, or actually throwing things in slow-mo, I suppose. My opponent's army, the usual Morgr Shadowglaive. I think this is what you'll see in most of your games against Beastmen, or as Beastmen, really. Morgr is very strong, can summon up to 4 units of Chaos Spawn. He is coming in alongside 4 units of Bestigor, who are, of course, very strong in the Dawi, with solid melee attack and very good armor, so the Longbeards won't be doing very much to him, neither will the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. Then 2 units of Minotaurs behind that. Now, vanilla Minotaurs, so no shields, very little armor, very susceptible to ranged fire, but they can dish out a lot of hurt, and the dwarves struggle to shut them down, that's for sure. They are fairly cheap by Minotaur standards. Front line composed of Ungor Herd, which are just terrible chaff, but they're terrible, but they're chaff infantry. They're just there to soak up the damage early on. You can see the first cannonballs coming into the Bestigors over there, and 3 units of Ungor Raiders. And the Ungor Raiders, while they don't have armor piercing and they're kind of flimsy, they should not be underestimated. They can definitely do a lot of hurt when you focus fire with them, just because there's so many shots coming out. And then finally 2 units of Harpies over here on the flanks, ready to kind of dive in and get into my back line and be a nuisance that way. So yeah, throwing things at full speed. You can see the Goblobber over here trying to pound down the Bestigors. I'm immediately turning my cannon on the Minotaurs, and you can see it whiffs there. Unfortunately, at longer range, it's not the most accurate of tools. The shots just keep piling on. Unfortunately, the Goblobber is definitely overshooting, which is a bit of a problem. Some cannon shots, though, coming in. Stagger. I do believe there are some slight... there we go. Some Bestigors do go down. I'm not worried about the Ungors. Not going to focus on them at all. That'll be a waste. You can see a cannonball here smacks the Minotaur in the face and sends him flying, which is pretty funny. The cannon did get buffed recently, so it has an actual bonus against large, and it's more accurate. So the dwarves definitely got a better unit that way. Unfortunately, I think my cannons are trying to hit the guy in the back, so they're not hitting like the massive units here in the front. Now my opponent is just kind of pushing into me, trying to get on top of me. I've popped some of the Runavos and Steel here to deal with the Ungors. You can see those Minotaurs between the Thunders and the Troll Hammers. They lose about half of their HP here immediately. My Thunders in the meantime are trying to cycle around, rotate, and pivot to engage these Harpies, but they are taking a peppering in the back, I think, from the Archers. These Minotaurs do dive into the Troll Hammers, and they will beat them up pretty badly, but fortunately that's what the Slayers are here for, and they will teach those Minotaurs a lesson, that's for sure. The Cannons are also pivoting around, trying to keep engaged on enemy targets. You can see these Minotaurs are getting shut down by cannon fire. Over here, Miners are on top of the Harpies, and Thunders are on top of the Harpies, so these Harpies should be chased away fairly quickly. In the meantime, Troll Hammers are trying to kind of reform a line here to get some fire going. I'm pushing these Miners into the Bestigors just to time down. This is not a fight the Miners can win, but they can buy me some time, and that's all that matters. Over here, the Harpies are actually doing a number on the cannon crew, but it's taking a while, and in the meantime, the Thunders are capable of just peppering these guys down. They are taking some flanking fire. It's very hard to see with the snow effects, but there's a lot of peppering fire coming in from the Ungor Raiders, and that's why a lot of my handguns and firing and shooting units are going down and losing so much HP. They're all being turned around to deal with these annoying Harpies and stuff, and these Ungors are capitalizing on that to get rear shots. Over here, Fire Ring did go down and absolutely maul this Ungor herd, and it's some okay work in the Bestigors. You can see a lot of the Ungors at this point are completely falling apart, as are the Minotaurs for that matter, and I'm peppering them on with the cannons. Some Minotaurs plow into the Miners over here, and another wave of Harpies, or the wave of Harpies do come back to be even more of a pain again. And you can see the Minotaurs actually have not lost a model up until this point, which is a little ridiculous. They have a lot of their HP all gone, and they still have all 9 of their models. Thunders are cranking it around to deal with the Harpies, while the Miners are doing their best to stave off the Minotaurs. Finally, one has gone down to the indomitable Dawi, and here you can see the Dwarven Panzerfaust coming in and chucking those grenades, hitting those Minotaurs in the face. Cannons are trying to crank around and engage on the enemy line, trying to deal with these Ungor Raiders, and they're just cleaving them down easy. Very, very easily. These Thunders over here are about to take a full charge from Bestigors, which will go terribly for them. They don't stand a chance. Goblobber is breaking these Ungor Raiders. Longbeards have pushed through after these Ungors, and over here, the Warriors of the Dragonback Slayers actually have got on top of. I forgot that I sent them out there, but they're doing good work there too. Minotaurs though are breaking. You can see more of those anti-tank rockets going into the Minotaurs, and finally with a very cinematic shot there, he gets sent flying by a cannonball applied to the face. Even his thick beastman skull couldn't protect him from that. My Miners are fleeing, and I definitely am not on top of bringing them back, which I should be, but definitely a lapse in micro there. These cannons, in the meantime, are being swarmed by the Bestigors, and they will go down very, very quickly. The crew's already been mauled from multiple engagements with various enemies. They won't be able to last very long, unfortunately. But fire is coming down from the flanks. The Troll Hammers are turning their guns around on the Bestigors. The Goblobber is firing at point blank over open sights here. Yeah, there's a handful of Miners here, but once again, actually I guess they routed off completely. I'm not entirely sure why. But barely tying down the flank over here. A new unit of Chaos Spawn does come around, which is very unfortunate for me. And these guys will actually do well against the Longbeards, because despite the fact the Longbeards have good armor, the Chaos Spawn just have so much damage per hit that they will melt through them very quickly. Fortunately, though, these Bestigors do stop moving. My opponent has a lapse in micro. And these guys are now getting shot up and or forced to rout off. Over here on the other flank, the Harpies actually lose the cannon crew. Actually, no, the Thunders are shooting into them, which is why they rout off. You can see how much damage, most of this damage on the Thunders was actually from Ungor Raiders, and it's important to keep that in mind. That is definitely an impressive amount of work done by the enemy skirmishers, given they're a very cheap unit. In the meantime, trying to rat off these annoying Bestigors once and for all with the Goblobber. The Panzerfaust moving back into position to deal with the Minotaurs over here. We did drop, the Warriors of Dragon Pirate Pass do move around to engage the Minotaurs, but unfortunately that's the end of them. They get hit by the transformation to Chaos Spawn and die. The Minotaurs over here are practically annihilated. My opponent is kind of rallying his troops and trying to push down into me. From up there, you can see the rocket launchers going into the Chaos Spawn, doing as much damage as they can. These guys are definitely causing a bit of hurt. You can see in how much XP they've gained that they've been doing a lot of damage. My Dwarf Lord was chasing the Bestigors away over there, and now he's coming back to deal with the Chaos Spawn. I'd made a huge mistake here by leaving the Longbeards in the fight with the Chaos Spawn. I should not have done that. I should pull them back. I should have let the heroes tank this out. The Troll Hammers crushing the Chaos Spawn very, very effectively. The Miners over here fighting tooth and nail. Morgr being surrounded by Dragonback Slayers, who are, of course, unbreakable. Archers are out of ammo. I actually still have some decent amounts of ammo. Goblobber's practically out, but this cannon over here is still a decent amount of ammo. I finally noticed that my Miners are missing, and I'm pulling them back. And these Thunders still have an okay amount of ammo, because my opponent was harassing my backline pretty effectively. These Chaos Spawn are disintegrating. One of them does take a hit there to the face. The last one makes his little charge, knocks over some of my Troll Hammers, and then disintegrates. as the Trollhammers reform ranks here, and my opponent's army finally does rout off. Pyrrhic victory. We're gonna do one more against Empire in a sec. Just kind of going over the endgame stats. You can see the against the Ungors, of course. The Ungors were there just as a chaff infantry. The Longbeards performed incredibly well, as did the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. Against the Vestigors, not so much. The Vestigors did ridiculous amounts of work. They're a very strong unit against dwarves, and you'll almost always see them. I might have been better off dropping the Trollhammers for a unit of dropping the Trollhammers down, downgrading them down to Thunders, and fielding 3 Longbeards with great weapons. That might have been a better idea in retrospect, but nonetheless, the heroes did hold out. The miners did some decent work on the flanks. The artillery park and ranged park did huge amounts of work. It's important to remember that the Iron Drakes almost leveled up that game, so they were doing a lot of HP damage. They were crushing the Minotaurs. They were the Minotaurs also about a third, maybe half of their HP as they plowed in initially on that charge, and a lot of that was just from those Iron Drakes. So yeah, my opponent's archers did huge amounts of work. I completely underestimated them. I'm like, I can ignore them. They won't do anything. And I only started focusing at the end of the game. That was a huge mistake on my part. They're very strong because of the mass fire, and they're the main reason why the Thunderers entered the game so weak. So very well played to my opponent. This was a very, very good thinking. Definitely caught me by surprise. So yeah, good game to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed this game, and we're gonna hop on over to one more. This time it's gonna be against Empire, but using this same build. So here we have another game, this time around against Empire, led by the Blue Bunny on the map Volkshrad. And I ran this comp again, and I was thinking, oh, it's interesting to see how it's going to be against Empire. And I made a huge mistake right off the bat, and that was not checking the map out. Something you always want to do before you start a game is see what map you're going to be on, because the maps in this game are very, very variable. There are maps that are completely open fields, which I abhor. That's really kind of, in my opinion, garbage. It's annoying to play on them. It's not very fun. There are some maps that have a decent mix of terrain, which are usually fun, and then there are some maps like this, which are a huge amount of trees, and there's very little room to maneuver, and it's really kind of annoying. It's very close in terrain. Definitely does not favor factions that or setups that require a lot of shooting. So I made a huge mistake in not seeing that, and it definitely a bit of a mistake. So regardless, though, we're going to throw this game into full gear. The comp is the same as last time. We brought the Dwarf Lord with a Potion of Toughness, the Fiery Ring of Thori, and Runesmith and Standing Ground. Runesmith with all his runes, as well as Rune of Stromny Redbeard over here. I did not actually bring the Missile Resistance rune, which might have been a good choice. Drop the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass down to Longbeards and bring that extra missile resistance. Regardless, front line of Longbeards, Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, handguns on the flanks, Iron Drakes here in the center as an kind of anti-tank force. I parked up here on the hill because this was the only place where I saw where I had that I could set up my army that had good firing lines. Goblobber in the back, the cannons, it's all kind of clustered up and condensed. Miners hidden out in the trees and the flanks. I do have one unit kind of in the front here to screen away any attempts to run cavalry through. And then a unit of Dragonback Slayers in the back, ready to flex and defend. So my opponent's army is very interesting, and I think this is a bit of a conventional Empire strat. This is kind of what you'll see fairly often. Interesting enough, a general of the Empire on a horse, which you don't see all that often, but he's coming in with a good old stand your ground as well as Potion of Toughness, and so very cheap, dirt cheap lord there, but he can definitely get the job done, and that's all that matters. My opponent definitely invested very heavily into his infantry blob here with 40 units of greatswords. These guys will absolutely shred through Longbeards. They'll shred through most dwarven infantry, really. The only thing that might have a chance is, well, that will have a chance is hammerers and iron breakers, maybe some of the regiments for now. And they're backed by a single Empire Captain on foot, and this is definitely a unit I recommend pretty highly as a support tool. Empire Captains stripped down like this are dirt cheap. They only cost 500, and they are very tanky. They can tie down a lot of enemy units around them and cause a lot of hurt. So they're not bad at all for their cost. Out here on the flank, he does have 2 units of handgunners. In the back, he has a unit of spears, just as a flex force. Probably had some leftover points, wasn't sure how to spend them. And then finally, all the way out here, I guess a cannon over here, ready to snipe away and give some fire support. Usually, it's not great to bring a lot of skirmish forces against dwarves. Granted, my previous videos show something else with massing them, but unless you're going to mass skirmish forces, it's not good to bring too many. The dwarves will beat you in a shootout and cause you some significant amounts of hurt. So the cannon here is not a bad pick to just whittle down my units without over-investing in ranged. Over here, 2 units of demigriffs. And these guys could do immense amounts of work if they get in my backline. They can flex around. They're very quick for cav, and they cause fear, which if I bring some fierce susceptible units, they're not going to be bad. And armor piercing, huge armor, very tough for dwarves to shut down, very strong. And over here on the flanks, 2 units of outriders, and these guys with grenade launchers. And grenade launchers are very strong. I've mentioned this before in my videos. They're very strong against armor, in spite of the fact it doesn't say so in their description. Against condensed troops like dwarves, they can be very powerful. The reason I don't usually bring them against dwarves is because they're so susceptible to return fire. But my opponent is definitely being pretty clever here, abusing the terrain to protect himself from my return fire in most part, or to protect himself for long enough to get into position to fire. I do get a little lucky there, score a hit with the Goblobber, which knocks off a few models in those outriders, teaches him a little bit of a lesson. But honestly, I think my opponent traded fairly well there with the Longbeards. Definitely knocked off quite a few models there. Did not make me a happy person. Definitely, grenades are not bad against dwarves. And if you can get them, if you can make them work, if you can get them in position like this, what my opponent's doing, using the terrain to sneak around me. In the meantime, I'm trying to pull back my skirmishers, so I kind of pulled up too far to attack the outriders with grenade launchers. My opponent has used the opportunity to push forward. I'm going to throw things into fast forward a little bit, and you can see my cannons do take some cheeky pot shots here at the handguns. They do knock off a few models. It's nothing more than speculative shooting, though. It's not going to net you much of an advantage. So throwing them back into fast forward. Shortly now, you can see my opponent has pushed up his cannon into a firing position, and it's shooting away at the Longbeards. And because my formation is this staggered, my cannons are this far back behind my main line. They're not in a position to counter battery the Empire artillery. Goblobber is probably the best counter battery artillery piece in the entire game. I don't really think that's better even than the Hell Cannon, which is pretty precise. But Hell Cannon only fires once and can't often kill artillery pieces or kill off the entire crew. It's not that great. The Goblobber is amazing. Because of that discourage effect, it can often rout off artillery crews from all factions, even including dwarves, and just make them flee and clear out the enemy artillery that way rather than destroying the guns. So I'm trying to push the Goblobber forward. I'm pushing my infantry forward to zone away and screen for it. You can see some of the Longbeards have lost some models here. These guys have actually lost a significant amount of models. A cannonball does come in and hurt the Goblobber crew over here, but they are trying to get into position. The cannon does outrange them by a tiny bit, by 10 meters, but the Goblobber, once it gets into position, it should give me total dominance in the ranged fight. My opponent is grenading my poor miners over here, and it's not giving them. They don't have a good day. They're getting destroyed. I'm trying to pull them back behind the tree line, force my opponent to pursue me into range of the handgunners. Over here, cannonball does come up at the outriders, but it does very little. It misses, and that's it. But the Goblobber is firing, and you can see that morale just tanking on the Great Cannon. Cannons are not precise enough to counter battery Goblobber. Goblobber is an incredibly accurate artillery piece because it is, of course, 9 veterancy. And that discourage effect, you can just see the HP drop and the morale dropping. Now I do pull my infantry back a little bit. I don't want to take any casualties that I can avoid. My front line is very, very flimsy. Over here you can see on the flanks, in the meantime, my artillery has been wailing on these Demigryph Knights, just trying to soften them up and time down. I have already positioned my miners to intercept, and my opponent is who's already being slowed by the woods, plows into these miners and is now getting bogged down. He's lost several Demigryphs already. He's down 7 models on that unit. This unit is full HP, but they're going to get hit by these miners. Coming through the woods, it means that they don't have as much momentum coming in, and they're not really going to be able to push through as easily. These Demigryphs over here getting picked apart pretty badly. The miners aren't doing very much to them, but the handgun fire or the thunder fire is definitely doing work. And every now and then a cannon volley. One of the problems with Demigryphs against dwarves, another 2 models going down. One of the problems with Demigryphs against dwarves is the fact, and you can see it in the back here, so there's a lot of stuff going on. Outriders dashing in the back, grenading my artillery positions. But one of the problems with and the cannon over here is down to 1 gun, so that's a pretty good win. But unfortunately, the handgunners dishing out some hurt to these poor Longbeards. One of the problems with Demigryphs, though, against dwarves, is if you're losing models, Demigryphs can fall apart very quickly once they start. If you're taking hits from weapons that pick off entire models, because they have a lot more models to lose, or a lot fewer models to lose. If a cannon is picking off 1 to 2 Demigryphs with every shot, it's going to be doing more damage than if it's picking off, say, 1 to 2 Reichsguard or Knights every shot. And your unit is significantly more expensive at that. So it's kind of a similar issue to the one where an elite infantry is much more susceptible to ranged fire as well. Over here you can see the Great Cannon's practically disabled. I am pushing these Longbeards into the fray to tie down this captain. You can see the Thunders are actually not really shutting these down because they're all shooting through the woods. And I don't want to commit here. I'm not entirely sure how much of my opponent's force is hidden here in the woods, because I did see the handguns before, but that's it. So I don't want to commit here, and I want to have my Longbeards in position to be ready to flex. In the meantime, I've kind of driven off these annoying outriders. They're being skirmished away. Demigryphs came in for another go, got bogged down by miners. as well as this time around we have the Dragonback Slayers in position to kind of tear them apart, and of course Trollhammer Torpedoes coming in, trying to pick these guys off. Another unit of Demigryphs coming in. We do see a Fire Ring coming into the Great Swords. Does a little bit of hurt. That's actually not a terrible skill against armored units, though. Not optimal, of course. Unfortunately, I make a mistake here with the Goblobber. It was not on guard mode, and I ordered it to attack the cannon. So it tries to pursue the cannon through the enemy infantry line. So it's going to go down. It's going to get slaughtered by the infantry it pushes into. In the meantime, the Thunderers are engaging shots with the handgunners, and I actually think they're losing, in spite of everything, which is or losing pretty decisively. I should have definitely committed the Longbeards there, but I do shift the Longbeards over to the right. You can see the Goblobber's practically gone. Huge mistake on my micro. Iron Drakes, though, pounding away on my opponent's flank. You can see these miners still trying to tie down these great swords. Dragonback Slayers have pursued these Demigryphs. Demigryphs are practically wiped out. They're no non-factor right now. And one of the units of Outriders actually got routed off as well, thanks to the handgun fire, or the Thunder. I keep calling them handguns. I'm so used to playing Empire, but Thunder Fire. In the meantime, the center pocket is kind of becoming a slaughterfest. The Empire Captain is losing to the Dwarf Lord. The Dwarf Lord has very high melee defense, so he's very tanky. He doesn't dish out a lot of hurt. He's more of a survivable lord, because he gets knocked around a lot by flying lords, and he has a potion of toughness, and good armor, and good melee defense. He's just tanky. That's his main gimmick. These spears are doing terrible against the Longbeards, but they are tying them down. One of the big benefits of spears is that their defense is high enough that units with low melee attack will struggle against them. But now my opponent is kind of seeing that his Demigryphs are off, and has been routed off, and his units are getting pincered down here in the woods and stuff. He does decide to call it a game. So definitely another bit of a, I think, demonstration match showing how this build can work against Empire. And I actually think that even against this Mass Thunderer build, while this would not be an optimal by any means, against the Mass Handgunner build, this might stand a little bit of a chance, because you might be able to route some things off with the Goblobber, push in with Longbeards, and just try to kind of force your enemy away that way. Good game to my opponent. I think he called it a game a little too soon. He did take some pretty significant losses with the loss of Demigryphs, but his Great Swords were still pretty healthy, and Great Swords can definitely thrash this line of low-end of mid-end infantry with Longbeards. They'll tear through them eventually. It's just a very grindy process. And the handguns were trading pretty well with Thunders, all things considered. The Outriders were a nasty shock, and they're definitely not bad. Goblobber, I mismicroed horribly, and you guys got the privilege of seeing that in action. But yeah, a good game to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do hope it gave you some ideas, and yeah. If you have any comments, criticism, any questions about composition, strat, any requests for units or builds you'd like to see demonstrated, be sure to post those down in the comments, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.